The night hangs heavy over the village, a blanket of mist and silence. The church bell tolls slow and hollow, its sound rolling through crooked streets and over moss-covered graves. Smoke curls from the chimneys, though none dare linger outside. The air smells of wet earth and candle wax, and beneath it something older, the stench of fear. For in these shadowed centuries, not all who labored did so in the light of God. Some trades were whispered to be touched by the unholy. Professions that dealt too closely with death, blood, or sin, those that no priest would bless, and no saint would claim. Men who earned silver by walking too near the veil that separates the living from the dead. These were not villains, nor heroes, merely souls bound by duty. They kept the kingdom running while the kingdom turned its back on them. Each coin they earned came with a curse, each meal a quiet fear that they had already been condemned. So gather close, traveler. Let the fire warm your face, though its light cannot chase all shadows. And listen, for what I tell you now is not of legend, but of truth buried deep in time. These are the 10 cursed callings of the Middle Ages, the labors of the damned, where a man might earn his bread in whispers and sleep with ghosts for company. The executioner, the man who serves death. He stands upon the scaffold at dawn. The fog is thick, the crowd restless, their breath rising like incense to the heavens. A hush falls as he steps forward, face hidden beneath the hood, blade gleaming pale as morning frost. To watch him work is to feel the breath of death itself. One swing, one scream, one silence. The crowd gasps, some with horror, some with hunger. And yet when the head rolls, all cross themselves. The executioner does not flinch. He has seen nobles and thieves alike tremble before him, and heard confessions that could blacken a saint's soul. He knows the weight of a man's neck, the sound of bone surrendering to steel. Yet for his service, he is cursed. No priest will absolve him. No maiden will marry him. He eats alone, sleeps apart, and walks with eyes always on the ground, for even shadows avoid his company. Children are told never to meet his gaze, lest the darkness follow them home. In some towns his house lies beyond the gate, where the gallows stand crooked against the sky. His tools, the rope, the axe, the block, are buried with him when he dies, sealed beneath iron nails and salt to trap the curse. And yet, his purse grows heavy with silver. Kings and bishops alike require his steady hand, though they spit upon the soil he treads. For in the great hypocrisy of Christendom, even holiness requires a hangman. They say each life he takes leaves a shadow behind, one that walks a step behind him, whispering his name. And when the final dawn comes, he will find no priest waiting, only the company of those he once sent ahead. He serves death, and death never forgets his own. The gravedigger, the earth's dark servant. When the sun sets and the world sleeps, the gravedigger wakes. Lantern in hand, he walks through the churchyard where the mist clings low and the yew trees bend like mourners. The only sound is the scrape of his shovel and the soft thud of dirt, the heartbeat of his unholy craft. He knows every tomb, every mound, every whisper of the soil. The dead are his neighbors, their names etched into his memory like scripture. And though his work serves both priest and peasant, none will speak to him in daylight. To dig graves is to live with ghosts. He feels them watching as he lowers the bodies, the weight of silence pressing like stone. Some say the ground beneath his feet remembers every soul he buries, that one day it will remember his. The villagers cross themselves when he passes. They say he smells of the cold earth, that his breath carries the chill of the grave. Children dare each other to watch him work, but few last long. Those who do swear they saw the dirt move on its own. He carries charms in his pocket, iron nails, sprigs of yarrow, a coin blessed by a dying priest. He leaves salt by his bed, for sometimes the dead do not stay where they are laid. At night, he dreams of clawing sounds beneath the soil. When he wakes, his hands are already gripping the spade. But still, he digs. Through plague, through famine, through endless wars, he digs. For when death comes in thousands, the church calls not for prayer, but for the man who buries its shame. And though he is cursed and feared, he keeps the village alive by keeping its dead beneath the earth. They may not thank him, but they all know without the gravedigger, the living would drown in their own dead. 3. The miller, the wheel that turns for the devil. At the far edge of every medieval village stood the mill, a place both vital and feared. Its wheel creaked endlessly, moaning like a spirit bound to labor. The river turned it, the stones ground the grain, and the miller counted his measure, always a little too generous for himself. Villages whispered that no honest man could grow so fat on others' toil, that he mixed the devil's dust with his flour, or turned his wheel with unholy wind. When storms rose without warning, they said the miller had cursed the skies. When the river ran red at dawn, they claimed it was blood from his pact. Even the church watched him warily, for the line between miller and magician was thin. Yet his home was grand, his wife dressed in linen, his table always full. Still, no one dared eat the bread ground by his hand. They believed to taste his flour was to taste the devil's tithe. So the wheel turned, creaking through years and souls alike, and the miller smiled, though even he sometimes heard a whisper in the grinding stone. The wheel turns for the devil still. The Alchemist, the man who tempted heaven. In a chamber thick with smoke and mystery, the alchemist labored. Vials bubbled with strange hues, parchment walls scrawled with symbols of power. He sought to turn lead to gold, flesh to spirit, mortal to immortal. But knowledge in those days was a dangerous pursuit. Villagers claimed his experiments summoned spirits, that his furnace glowed with hellfire. When thunder cracked or the church bell rang at odd hours, they crossed themselves and whispered, "The alchemist has angered heaven again." His hands were burned from mercury, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. He spoke to no one, yet voices were said to speak to him, not of this world, but older, darker. Many alchemists vanished without trace. Some found their labs sealed with wax and scripture by order of the church. And yet, the dream of gold, the philosopher's stone, continued to haunt them, even to their final breath. He yearned to defy death, but coughed blood before dawn. His journals, inked in secrets, were buried with him, for none dared read them aloud. For in seeking eternity, he had found only the eternal curse of forbidden knowledge. The sin-eater, feasting on the dead. When a man dies unshriven, unconfessed, unblessed, and his soul is said to wander. But not all souls are lost forever. For a price one may find rest, through the mouth of another. Enter the sin-eater, a hollow man, gaunt and pale, summoned in secret when priest refused. He would kneel beside the corpse, place bread upon the chest, ale by its side, and eat in silence, taking upon himself the sins of the departed. Each bite, a burden. Each sip, a step closer to damnation. He was paid in coin, but cursed in spirit. The villagers would not speak his name, for fear their own souls might follow him into darkness. Children threw stones when he passed, and yet when their kin died unblessed, they came crawling to his door. No woman would marry him, no priest would bury him, for when his time came, no one dared take his sins. It is said that sin-eaters were sometimes buried at crossroads, so their damned souls would never find their way home. And so he lived, and died as a vessel for others' guilt, a man who devoured the darkness of all, until it devoured him in turn. The fire crackles low. Outside, wolves howl beyond the hedgerow. The night deepens, and with it, the weight of old tales. You've heard of those who served death. Now listen to those who served life and were cursed all the same. 6. The Midwife, the womb's witch. In candlelit chambers and lonely cottages, the midwife toiled where heaven and earth met. She knew the ancient ways, herbs that eased pain, oils that summoned strength, charms that kept a child breathing through the perilous night. She had learned them from her mother, and her mother before her, tracing a lineage of women who worked in the shadow of creation itself. To many, she was a saint. To others, a witch. When a baby wailed, she was praised in whispers, her hands kissed, her name spoken with reverence. But when the child was stillborn, when blood flowed too freely, when death came instead of life and the same mouths spat upon her threshold, she meddles in the Lord's work, they would hiss. She steals souls meant for heaven. The church forbade her from using charms or chants, yet priests still sent for her in secret when noble women went into labor. For all their sermons, even holy men feared the agony of childbirth, and only the midwife's hands could guide a woman through that valley of death. She walked between two worlds, life and death, faith and forbidden magic, and though she saved countless mothers, no blessing could cleanse her name. When plague swept the land, suspicion spread faster than fever. The herbs she once used for healing were now called poison. They dragged her before tribunals, her hair torn, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights beside dying women. They called her womb witch, child stealer, bride of the devil. Her tools, the herbs, the oils, the charms, were burned with her name. Yet still, when the cries of labor echoed in the dark and no priest would come, her name was whispered once more. Because even in death, no one knew the secrets of life like she. 7. The bell ringer, the one who calls the spirits. High in the church tower, among dust and shadows, stands the bell ringer. His hands are cracked, his back bent, his hearing gone from the endless tolls of bronze. He rings for weddings, for funerals, for the dying and the dead, the keeper of time, the herald of heaven. But few envy his post. Each toll, it is said, echoes through heaven and hell alike. For every soul it calls to prayer, another stirs from its grave. The villagers whisper that too many rings awaken not only the living but the lost. The tower is a lonely kingdom. Wind howls through the rafters, rats skitter in the dark, and lightning loves the cross above. Thunder often strikes close, as if heaven itself grows weary of his song. Many a bellman has fallen, some say pushed by unseen hands, others strangled by the very ropes that once obeyed their pull. And when the bell tolls alone in the night, long after the last prayer, villagers bar their doors and murmur. The bell ringer tolls for himself. Still, he climbs the stairs, though his legs tremble, though the air grows colder with each step, because if he does not ring the bell, the dead will not find their way home, and that, they say, would be the greater curse. At dawn, when mist curls around the steeple and ravens gather to watch, his shadow sways gently among the ropes. The bell still rings, but no one sees his hand upon it. The leper, marked by heaven, shunned by man. His flesh is torn, his face hidden beneath linen cloth. He walks the road ringing a small bell, crying, "Unclean! Unclean!" Children scatter, dogs bark, doors slam. Once he had a name, a farmer, a mason, perhaps even a mother. Now he is nameless, faceless, and an exile of the flesh. The priests call his affliction divine punishment, a sign of sin made manifest. But the leper carries no hatred, only sorrow. He tends to those worse than himself, the plague victims, the dying soldiers, the abandoned. He buries the corpses that no priest will touch, binding his wounds with rags steeped in vinegar and prayer. He eats alone, prays alone, dreams of touch that will never come again. When he finally dies, no church bell rings for him, no gravedigger will claim his body. His grave lies beyond consecrated ground, a shallow pit marked by a wooden cross already leaning, already forgotten. And yet, perhaps in heaven's eyes he is cleanest of them all, for he bore the world's revulsion with grace and gave mercy where none was shown. And on nights when the fog creeps low and soft over the hills, travelers say they can hear a faint bell ringing in the dark, not as a warning, but a prayer. 9. The rat catcher, the hunter of shadows. When the Black Death came, silent, black and merciless, and when it was the rat catcher who went to war, armed with traps, poisons, and dogs trained to kill, he stalked the alleys of death. His cloak stank of rot, his boots were slick with filth, and his hands bore more scars than any knight. The people feared him, yet needed him more than priests. He walked where sickness lived, under floorboards, in cellars, behind walls alive with scratching. Children followed his pipe music until their mothers yanked them away, whispering, "Do not look at him too long." The plague seized through his eyes. The villagers claimed he spoke to vermin, that the rats obeyed him like disciples. Some swore they saw him kneel in the dark, whispering into the sewers, and the rats would fall silent all at once. Others said he was no man at all, but the spirit of pestilence itself, cursed to wander wherever death feasted. When the rats vanished, so did he. Sometimes in the years that followed, people heard faint piping in the fog and the squeal of tails unseen, and they knew the plague had returned. His work saved lives, but no one dared thank him, for who could bless the man who consorted with the shadows of disease? They say he walks still, lantern in hand, forever seeking the last rat, the last breath of the Black Death. 10. The tax collector, the devil's treasurer. He arrives at dawn, horse cloaked in black, coin purse heavy, smile thin and cruel. The peasants bow, though hatred burns behind their eyes. He takes copper from the hungry, silver from the grieving, gold from the guilty, all in the king's name. But gold gathered in suffering carries its own curse. They say at night, when the house grows still, the coins whisper. They whisper the names of those he ruined. Each clink of metal is a sigh, each bag of silver a soul he has damned. He dreams of faces, hollow-eyed widows, starving children, broken men. They stand at his bedside, their mouths sewn shut, their eyes glinting like coin. When he wakes, his hands are blackened with soot, though his hearth burns cold. When famine strikes, his house is the first to burn. When rebellion brews, his name is carved into the gallows tree. Even the church will not bury him. Though his gold buys indulgences, his soul remains bankrupt. They say his corpse lies sealed within a stone vault, surrounded by his treasure, and that every coin inside bears a face, frozen mid-scream. And on moonless nights, if you listen close, you can hear him still, counting coins in the dark, cursed to balance the devil's books forever. The fire burns low, traveler. The wind howls beyond the chapel ruins. These were the forgotten souls, the hands that built a world of faith and fear. Men and women who kept the gears of the Middle Ages turning, yet walked forever in its shadow. For every shining night there was an executioner to keep his honor clean. For every priest, a sin-eater who bore the burden he would not. For every mother's joy, a midwife's fear. So when the church bell tolls across the mist, do not pray only for the blessed, but for the damned. For it was the cursed who built the Middle Ages, and they did so with blood on their hands and whispers in their wake.